Welcome back to my channel. Rather, it's your channel of AI for ICSE and CBSE students. Welcome to Fanball Labs, and we are here again with a new video, and we are going to study today the remaining portion of the introduction of robotics. So what we earlier studied was up to the disadvantages of the robots. So earlier I gave an introduction of the basic difference between a machine and a robot, and what are the advantages of robots. Robot can work in a hazardous condition, a machine cannot, and the key differences between machine and a robot, and what a robot looks like, what a robot does, and various components of a robot, and few examples of robots and machines. Earlier we have studied up to the disadvantages of robots and few examples, the components of a robot, the basic differences between a machine and a robot, what a machine can do, what a robot can do. So let's start from evolution of robot and let's complete this chapter. So from 1920 to 2020 till present, so you have an average about 100 years of evolution of robots. So at first in 1920 the term robot was introduced by Karl Kapek. He was a playwright. So Karl Kapek introduced the term robot. Karl Kapek, and what he did is introduce the term robot. Now he was a playwright. He was a playwright. So in his play called Rossum's Universal Robots, he introduced the term robot, which is also called in abbreviation RUR, means Rossum's Universal Robots. So in this play he introduced the term robot. So if we dive into very deeply about the classification and some few examples of robots in the first few eras of its evolution, then we have the robots called teletractor, which was a remote control device that was used by people with disabilities to help them perform daily tasks. The people that had were physically challenged, rather, they used the teletractor for doing the daily tasks. So it proved to be a boon for the physically challenged people. And now we are going to study about what happened in 1930s to 1940s. So the first implementation of robot was done in 1930. This is very important, and this is going to come or may come in your MCQs. So the first implementation of robot was done in 1930. So you have to remember the year in which the first robot was implemented. So when Unimate was developed, and if you are having difficulty in remembering the year in which the first robot was implemented, you can remember the name of the robot which was made in this year, that is Unimate. What is Unimate? So Unimate is was a type of robotic hand designed to help in the automotive industry. So sorry, not automotive. Unimate was a robotic hand designed to help in the automating industry. Now it did things like die casting and etc. So we're gonna move to 1940 to 1950s. So it was on the onset of World War II, where, including the Unimate, some industrial robots were developed for use in manufacturing, including the Unimate, which was used to automate the assembly line of General Motors. General Motors was a very famous company, so this type of robots were made to automate the assembly line of General Motors. So 1950 to 1960s, the new concept of AI. Now in the early 1950s to 1960s, the term or the idea or the term began to spread, that is AI, artificial intelligence. So in the late 1960s it developed, but the new concept of AI, artificial intelligence, was introduced and it gained popularity pretty quickly. Researchers now had begun exploring the possibilities of creating new robots that could mimic human intelligence. So this you have to know, and this is for your general knowledge about what AI actually will do and is doing. Is actually AI or the robots or the humanoids or the cobots, everything, every robot, every system, every technology that is being developed in the AI industry is doing the same thing, that is mimic the human intelligence, mimic the human motions, mimic the human structure. You have noticed, I think so, that the robots are made with limbs, hands, a torso, so it is mimicking the human face, body and the structure. The neural network, which is not a part of this chapter, you might have heard about neural networks, so it mimics the human brain. So what AI or the robot does is mimic humans. So the core goal of artificial intelligence is to fully mimic humans and their intelligence. So the first AI robot to be made was Shaky. Now Shaky was the first AI robot. This can come in your multiple choice questions, that what was the first AI robot. Shaky, a robot that was developed by Stanford Research Institute. Now it was developed by Stanford Research Institute, and along with this development of robots, that would give an individual lot of strength, and power was on the rise too, because as robots were being made, artificial intelligence were developing. It was the world was gaining more power and it was rising on popularity too. So 1960s to 1970s. Now the advancements in electronic technologies by the 1960s led to the development of advanced robots. So in the late 1960s to 1970s, more advancements were made in electronic fields, electrical robots were made, and more advancement in robots and technologies were seen. So in 1970s to 1980s, the first microprocessor control, the term or the component microprocessor was made or coined or be popularized in 1970s. The first microprocessor controlled robot was developed in 1973. This can also come, the year can also come. You have to remember the year specifically. It is 1973. First microprocessor controlled robot was made. 1973. In 1973, the first microprocessor controlled robot was made. So this allowed precise control and various advancement in the robotic motion and its popularity. So 1980s to 1990s, robots built with computer vision and sensory capabilities were developed. So now robots were being made to sense and perceive information from the external environment. Now sensors were being popularized and sensors were being made and implemented in the robots. So now sensory robots were made. Now first it began in 1960s to 1950s to 1960s AI, then 1960s electronic robots, then 1970s microprocessor, then 1980s now sensor. Now you have to remember the chronology of the components. Now the microprocessor, the sensor, it's a very interesting chronology to remember. If you remember, there's no learn by heart thing. I'm just telling you to just make the thing easy for you guys to remember that this is a very interesting chronology. If you think and remember this chronology, you can easily understand the evolution of robots part. So now in the 1980s to 1990s, the flexible manufacturing system was also introduced and allowing robots to perform a variety of tasks in single production line. As we talked earlier that Unimate and other robots were helping in to automate the assembly line of the General Motors. Now in the 1990s to 1980s to 1990s, this automating the production line was more popularized, more advanced, and more capable of doing the same thing in a single production line. Now from 1990s to 2000s, the evolution of robots were taking its massive peak of technology. Robots like Mars rover, Spirit, Opportunity were manufactured, making a major milestone in space explorations with these robots. These robots were actually made for space explorations. These robots were used mainly for space explorations. From 2010 to 2020s, the evolution of robots were at its maximum speed with advancements, making of collaborative robots you might have heard about the name of a very interesting and a very powerful collaborative robot or a humanoid called Sophia. And Sophia is the first humanoid robot made in early 2019 or 2020s, and it is the most powerful and the most human-like robot. So there are many robots, many humanoids now being made. So Sophia is one of the most popular out of them. So in the recent years, 2020 to present, robots have become more and more advanced and versatile. The development of humanoids like Atlas, Asimov, and Sophia, and who made Sophia? This may come in your multiple choice. Sophia was made by Hanson Robotics. Sophia was made by Hanson Robotics. Hanson Robotics. Now, we have earlier talked about Roomba, long trimming bot, food delivery robot, hospitality robot. Now, this part is completed. Now we have to focus on robotics and the 3 laws of robotics. That is very important, and from this portion you have to learn only the 3 laws of robotics and who gave the 3 laws of robotics. The 3 laws of robotics were given by Isaac Asimov. He is a writer and a scientific writer mainly, and he actually gave 3 laws of robotics. So the first law of robotics is a robot may not injure a human being or through inaction allow a human being to come to harm. So the first law of robotics is a robot may not injure a human being or through inaction. A robot may not injure a human being or through inaction come to harm. Allow a human being to come to harm means a robot cannot harm a human being or allow a human being to come to harm. So the second law is the robot must obey the orders given to it by human beings except where such orders conflict with the first law. A robot must obey the orders given to it, but it should not or it must not obey where such commands or such orders conflict or break or violate the first law. The third law and the last final law is called the robot must protect its own existence. A robot surely must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first and the second law. That type of protection is only viable and only actually useful for its own existence where as long as that type of protection or that type of security does not conflict with the first and the second law. Now robotics is based on 3 laws of robotics, what is given by Isaac Asimov, and he was a science fiction writer who created an ethical system for both humans and robots. He gave his 3 laws in a science fiction play called Run Around, which became the modern day base of modern day robotics. Now, where the first 3 laws of robotics were given? These 3 laws were given by in Run Around fiction play by Sir Isaac Asimov. in the run around play, he gave the 3 laws of robotics that I mentioned today. And today we will keep up to these 3 laws, and in the next video we will study and finish this chapter. There is the classification of robots and various types of ground robots, aerial robots and bio-inspired robots, and there is nothing there is nothing difficult in this chapter. So keep thriving, keep learning, and please subscribe and hit the like button if you like this video. And thank you, and we will again meet on Fanbell Labs. Thank you.